both sides.
And it's not even.
Yeah,
seasonal.
we're about to get it. Yeah, there's a lot of cheese. Me and Linda used to drive back, but I remember I'd seen the church, she said the best thing about it. Oh, I love seeing my kids, grandkids. You buy Trader Joe's and get the $2 chuck. You know? Rest of all, gotta have balls.
You're the man. Perfect. I like it when it's easy.
Oh my goodness.
Cross that off and move it along.
Oh my goodness. Are they gonna come and do that?
Make sure.
So, oh yeah.
Green's green, right?
Are you guys going to the morning?
Yes. Who knew you had to register for it? Found that out today.
The green areas and everything is all in
I
there.
didn't know. It was my first
It's
time.
not like headlights where you just take the bulb out. Huh.
Local leaders
That'd be
day.
too easy. Yeah. Shouldn't be that difficult.
Sometimes you involve cities. Wow.
No, there you go.
Chief, are you set up there?
We are good, we are on, and nobody's on.
All right, sounds good. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first meeting of March for the Mount Vernon City Council. And first item on the agenda is to call the meeting to order. But before we get into approval agenda and so on and so forth, I wanted to, a little statement that I felt was important this week with the loss of Monster and so on. But I asked Chief Shannon to actually read it from the pulpit there and get it read into to our meeting here because I wasn't sure I could do it. So,
You make me cry again. I can't cry anymore.
Chief Shannon.
I got nothing left.
And this is addressed, I wrote it and felt that I wanted to address it to the city staff, police staff, as well as Officer Mole and his family.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is on behalf of the mayor. I would like to address this message to city staff, the police department, Officer Mole, and his family. I think it is vitally important that we start the civic gathering with comments about an event that has shaken our community. It is incumbent upon me to recognize the tragedy that has occurred last Tuesday and to allow time for everyone to grieve and shed tears as they see fit, but also to take the time necessary for the healing process. The morning of February 25th was a very sad day for the Mount Vernon and Lisbon community, who lost a popular friend, a sad day for all city staff who lost an employee, for all police staff who lost a fellow officer, and for Officer Mole who lost a family member. I know resources like the department chaplain will be made available to our officers, but do what is necessary at this painful time. You, as our police department, lead the pack of helpers in our community. Let us now be the helpers for you as you all grieve the loss of Officer Monster. Monster was a trusted partner, faithful friend, fearless by nature, and loyal by choice. I would welcome any council member who would like to make a statement now.
It's an opportunity for anybody else that wants to make some comments now. You're more than welcome. Why don't we just offer that opportunity?
Deepest condolences.
It's a hard one.
It is. I believe a minute of silence would be respectful acknowledgement of the loss we, as a grateful community, experienced.
We'll take that minute right now. Please continue, Chief.
As a council and mayor, thank you for allowing us to serve with you. We pledge your ongoing support. We recognize your service. We appreciate you and are fortunate to be partners with you in such a supportive community. In due time, an appropriate permanent memorial will be established in memory of Officer Monster. Rest in peace, Officer Monster, badge 867 K9, end of shift, February 25th, 2025. And again, on behalf of all the officers, to all the council, and I've had meetings, I want to thank every single one of you for the support that we have in the community, and the community support has been outstanding, and exactly what we need as we go, so thank you.
Your chief for reading it.
Saturday, 9 o'clock.
Correct.
That's okay. At the police station.
Yes, we will, we put it out on social media today, it'll be going in this week's Sun, we got it in a little bit after time, but you know, they're pretty good people over there, and make things happen, so there'll be an ad in the Sun. We're going to do a community memorial event at the police department, weather permitting outside probably, at 9 a.m. And the community, this is a community event for the community to come for the memorial as well. So we've had numerous requests, and I think it'll be good for everybody.
Thank you again, chief. Now we're to agenda additions or agenda approval. And there's nothing to add or nothing to change.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second. To those who shall move and seconded to approve the agenda. And all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications. This is the time if there's anybody here from the public that wishes to address anything that is not on the agenda, to take the opportunity to speak from the podium. Otherwise, if you're waiting for an agenda topic, agendas are in the back of the room, and you can address council when that item comes up. Is there anyone here to speak to any topic that's not on the agenda? Chief, did you get the situation taken care of with the speaker person ahead of time?
Correct. You do have one online now, but
Okay. Hearing no open comments for this part of the meeting, we'll move on to the consent agenda with the one item on the agenda, that's approval of the last meeting's minutes. Everybody had a chance to review it. Any comments? Is there a motion?
Move approval of the minutes.
I'll second.
Scott? Stephanie? Moved and seconded to approve the presented city council minutes, or consent agenda. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chris has suggested that I still go ahead with the opening of the public hearing. Item E, public hearing on the awarding of bid and authorizing the sale of 42nd Avenue Southwest, Mount Vernon, our current and old public works site. Public hearing is now open.
Just to formally go through the process, obviously we didn't receive any sealed bids for the property. I will be talking to the city attorney, but my understanding is it would go back through the process, and instead of having a minimum sale price, it would probably just be left open and then go through sealed bids once again, and then see what is offered. And if it's significantly lower than what we want, then it's still on the property.
And I know you're going to talk to the attorney, so this might be a answer then kind of question, but do we, as part of those bids, is it a pure dollar amount, or is it a, here's what I would plan on doing with the property? And I know it's limited by what it's selling for and all of those sorts of things, but.
So the second round, you have like, similar to what happened with the fire station.
Right.
Nobody offered
Right.
initially go through a second process. We required them to submit the bids they were going to do with the property.
And at that point then,
Yeah,
and
you
then,
take that
so
into account.
then taking it to the next logical question is, that can then factor in, so
Mhm.
we don't necessarily have to take the high bid if that is gonna be for a use that we wouldn't necessarily.
No, so for instance, if a nonprofit were to purchase it and not pay taxes versus somebody that paid, offer $20,000 less, but they're gonna pay property tax,
Right.
you could factor that in.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Public hearing is still open. Is there anybody from the public here to speak to that? I know we've got somebody online here. Are you by chance here to speak to the public hearing on the sale of public works site? Any other comments? Otherwise, it's 6:38. I close the public hearing and move to G1. So resolution awarding bid and authorizing sale in 42nd Avenue Southwest, Mount Vernon. Is that moved at this point?
If nobody makes a motion, it dies for lack of action, so, yes, you.
Hard to authorize a sale when there's one.
Right.
So we could really throw a monkey wrench in and motion something.
Go buy it?
Go nuts.
Well, good. I mean, at this point, you know, $7.
I'm assuming that's going to die for lack of motion for second. And move to G2, Resolution 3/2025, approving the final plat of Stonebrook 10th Edition subdivision to the city of Mount Vernon. And eventually we'll need a roll call vote.
So this is the, would have been the final stage, final phase of Stonebrook 2. This is the largest of the phases, opens up 47 lots. There is potential for another phase just to the west of this. There's an additional 10 acres that was purchased to be potentially part of this whole subdivision, but the only, as I state, between this resolution and the next resolution, lots 20 and 21 that are on the south side of the cul-de-sac have shifted from the west to the east. So why you see two resolutions and a quick claim deed is due to that.
Streets are all in for this, all substructure and everything.
So they post, there are some things that it always kind of lands back on the other utilities, Alliant and things like that. They post bond for the dollar amount of those improvements. So for the most part, yes, everything is in.
I know the representation from Boomerang here. Do you have anything to add or any questions? Boomerang while they're here? Any comment to make?
No.
All right. Anything else on the resolution? Everything else is in effect? Okay.
Seeing that planning and zoning voted 5-0 in favor of approving the final plat, I would move to approve resolution 3-3-2025B.
I'll second. Thank you. Moved and seconded to approve final plat of Stonebrook 10th. And that resolution needs a roll call vote, so
Anderson,
Yes.
Turler,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
West. Yes. Engel.
Yes.
resolution passes. Next item is resolution 3/3/2025C, approving the quick claim deed to Lot A of Stonebrook 8th Edition to the city of Mount Vernon. Questions of staff about that one?
I would move approval of resolution 3-3-2025.
I'll second.
Paul and Stephanie, moved and seconded to move forward with 3/3/2025C. And if there are no questions or comments or concerns, we'll put that to a roll call vote.
Engel,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Turler,
Yes.
West. Yes. Anderson.
Yes.
The resolution also passes. Moving to 3/3/2025D, accepting works of the project known as the 2024 water meter replacement project with Ferguson Waterworks.
This is just releasing the retainer, the original retainer.
So this is accepting the project. We are down under 40 meters that have to be,
And what was the original, what was it? It was, yeah, 9 something?
for actual meter changes?
Yeah.
No, it was
13.
1300.
Oh, geez, okay.
Yeah, you're under 3%.
Yeah.
So, actually by the time you got through the credits for the smaller meters versus what they had ordered, the net change was under $5,000. So the total project cost was $678,641.20. So And then there is a mandatory waiting period of 30 days on the retainer, $33,932.06.
Elton, how many have you had to install? Any?
I haven't had to install any.
Okay. I knew you were a backup, but,
Alex and Ryan have installed several. but-
oh, okay, so.
Yeah,
Some of your team members have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think when Bethel left, we were right around 90. And then Bethel came back and got down to about 60. And then Alex and Ryan have added to that too. There's still some growing pains. We're having Ferguson have to come back, expected, but meters program backwards or fires being cut. So there's some things that they're going back to correct still.
So this is, we're not paying anything today, we're accepting the completion.
You'll pay at the, I don't know,
In that case, I would move approval of resolution 3-3-2025D, accepting work for the project known as the 2024 water meter replacement project.
Second.
Move to seconded by Scott and Mark to approve that one. One question, are the ones that are remaining, are they absentee landlords, rental properties, any?
So at your next meeting, we will start the process to amend the ordinance to more or less charge a monthly surcharge to coerce them into completion. It's a little bit of, it's kind of all over the board. There's definitely that though. Individual landlords have been paying attention, but along with that surcharge is I don't have the ability to make changes to accounts that have issues because of the billing. So, and we've had 2 or 3 where they've had really high reads because of some of the issues that we're having with the meter. So both of those will probably start at your next meeting, just so that I don't have to bring an individual request to you at every council meeting.
Resolution on the floor has been moved and seconded. There are no other comments or questions. We're ready to vote on that. Marcia?
Rose?
Yes.
Engel?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Henderson?
Yes.
Turler?
Yes.
Resolution passes. No proclamations or old business. Motion for approval, claims list that Marcia sent out this afternoon. Questions of Marcia about that claims list?
She already answered my question. It's kind of a February leap year. Nobody gets paid.
20s of the month, huh?
You guys should read those contracts up here. With that said, I would move approval of the claims list as presented.
Second.
And Craig. Moved and seconded to approve the claims list. And if we're ready to vote on that, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Second motion for approval is consideration of change order number 7 on the 2024 pool improvements.
This is the change order that I've been waiting for. Once the decision was made to not put overhead lighting up, I asked Woodruff to put together a package that would look at all of the remaining buildings. We intentionally left off the improvements to those buildings until we knew what the initial bids were going to be and that we were going to be able to correct issues with the basin without additional change orders. We've reached that point. Just from fixtures in the bathhouse to rotting soffit around the office area and the concession stand. So all of that will get a much needed facelift. Some painting that will get done. Obviously not new buildings, but they'll definitely look a lot better to coincide with the new concrete and other things that are going on in the pool. The change order request, sorry, the change order request is $157,368.57.
Anything to add?
No, nothing to add.
I would move approval of change order number 7, 2024 pool improvement project in the amount of $157,368.57.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Paul and Scott. Moved and seconded to move forward, change order number 7 on the pool. And if there are no other questions, this is a voice vote. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Discussion consideration of required financial software package upgrade. Council action as needed.
So, we've kind of forewarned the council about this coming down. So our financial software package is through Tyler Technologies. We spent the last year and a half looking at various software packages to see if we should make a shift or not. Ultimately, we decided against that, but in order to keep our existing package and move forward in the future, they're requiring an upgrade. So the upgrade has a one-time cost of $61,569, and then it has an annual maintenance fee of $28,192.
Is that maintenance fee pretty consistent with what we're paying now?
It's definitely higher, but is it somewhat consistent? Yes, I mean, the maintenance fee itself is consistent.
I'm not surprised there's a maintenance fee, I'm just surprised it was almost $30,000.
Yeah, I would say,
So if we have been paying $20,000, did it just, jump?
no, it's like everything else. So from GIS to financial software, there's only like 3 in the entire state. We had looked at another product, and about the time that Lori and Marcia had gone through the process, we started seeing emails flying across from other cities that had gone to it. They were now requiring them to be on
In the cloud.
in the cloud. So their cloud, not just in the cloud, their cloud. So one way or another, they're going to get their money.
I thought they were charging us for each page of their proposal. 40 pages.
Yeah.
I debated
Nice
it
to
when
know
I
they're
put all that
being
in there, but I'm like, never usually keep information away from you, so.
Well, and the nice thing about using Tyler Tech is they can sit and work on this on the backside, because all of our data and information is with them anyway. So it won't be a huge disruption to us as we work through this process.
Good.
That being said, I would move approval of the financial software package presented by Tyler Technology for the $61,569, along with the annual maintenance of $28,192.
Second.
Motion and second.
Actually, as I do that, one quick question before we vote. The maintenance, is that locked in, or are we anticipating that changing on a percentage basis each year, or?
I would expect to be.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay. I assumed as much, but just.
That's a good question, but we'll bring that up to them as we go through this process.
Oftentimes, if it's a 3-year contract,
Right,
maybe
and
it
then-
stays for 3 years,
Yeah.
and we have the chance to increase it.
Yeah.
Any other discussion about that contract? Otherwise, we've got a motion on the floor to approve Tyler contract there. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, discussion and consideration of the invoice for the Rachel Street design. Next step in the process.
Invoices in the amount of $13,004.50. Rachel Street is obviously where the new trip started out.
Question I had, is this both sides of Highway 1?
So, yes, work will need to be done on both sides. Obviously, the most extensive part will be on the west
Not
side.
the west side, but this does cover the wide one. Thank you. With that, I would move approval of the $13,004.50.
Second.
Paul and Mark. Got a motion on the floor to approve the B&K invoice on the Rachel Street design. If there are no other questions of staff, ready to vote on that one? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have a discussion and consideration of a memorial bench request for Ed Sauter. Council action as needed.
So, we do have a couple of benches in Sauter Park that the city has purchased. Normally what happens in that instance, if somebody wants to take naming rights at that bench itself, then they pay the city the cost of what the bench is. It's a precedent we started actually in the downtown as soon as we got the South Alley placed. So we purchased benches from Liberty Iron Works. They want to put their name on and they basically make a donation in that dollar amount. This has kind of been I would say, an informal policy that staff has been conducting, but just wanting to gauge the council and to make sure that they're still okay with that process. We could probably formalize this policy in writing with Park and Rec Board, but until then, obviously we won't be able to provide an answer.
What's a bench cost?
Depends.
Liberty,
the ones
Iron Works would be more
downtown are
expensive
about
than
$4,000.
4,000.
So,
Now, there's the one in the park that we got at a discount up at Memorial Park. Remember for the gentleman that fell?
It just feels like it would be fitting that this bench would be made of concrete, just my point. Seeing as the impact it had on that industry. But that's not a must, it's just a consideration. I mean, from the instant I started being involved back in '94 with the Park and Rec Board and all my time on council and as mayor and during my breaks of serving, there was one constant in this community that, again, pardon the pun, but was a rock in the belief in the history of our community, the value of architecture, and just the downright goodness of people. Ed Sauter epitomizes what good is all about. And with that, I would move that we move forward with the memorial bench in his honor.
I will second, having served with him on the community development board. I agree with everything you just said, Paul.
And to clarify the motion, we're continuing the staff policy, or are we?
They can do either or. If they want to place a name on one of the existing benches, then they would just pay the cost of that bench. If they would like to cite a new bench, then they submit plans.
Then it would be a thing.
And then we approve from there.
Okay.
I support this particular bench, for sure, for Mr. Sauter. I do think that for the future, coming after this, we should have something in place that we could go back to.
Agreed, and ironically, I got a request in the last week. I was going to talk to Tom about another one, so
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
I think we definitely need a policy. So.
I got one that I got over the winter too. But, to add Paul's tribute to Ed, you mentioned the historic preservation side, but the original plans for the wellness center was at a table in Mike Newmeister's house with Ed Sauter and Scott Peterson. And those were the three that initially came up with the concept of a wellness center. And it's come a long way from the napkin that they were drawing those designs on to what we have right now. So he's the one that started the vision.
He started it and then he resurrected it
Well,
30 years later,
several times.
you know, which is what it needed, and then we ended up here, so.
Our fire department comes in line. Get the fire department bill. Any other tributes to Ed? Otherwise, there is a motion on the floor from Paul and Stephanie regarding the memorial bench request for the Sauter family. And if we are ready to vote on that, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Discussion consideration of setting a public hearing for budget amendment number 1 to the fiscal year 24-25 budget for April 7th, 2025. Council action is needed. This is a two-part meeting that night. Is that what we're doing here?
Yeah, I'll do a two-part meeting in Florida.
Two meetings, whatever.
Is this the first part?
No, the first part will be your budget. Actually, you want tax.
Oh, this is setting the public hearing.
We
We already set the other meeting.
one.
Now
Thank
this is
you.
setting- okay.
I would move with approval of setting public hearing for April 7th, 2025 for budget amendment number 1 to fiscal year 2024-2025.
Okay, Paul.
I'll second.
Scott. Moved and seconded to set the April 7th for the budget hearing. And any other questions? Otherwise, we're ready to vote on that one. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Just as a reminder, the mayor knows this, I will not be here at that meeting, so if we need a quorum, we'll have to all show up.
No pressure.
That's a veteran move over here, Mr.
Heavy lifting here. Next item is discussion and consideration of Carico Aquatic Resource Incorporated, the Water Management Assistance Program for the pool.
The dollar amount went up $500, but it's $15,900. We basically supply all our chemicals for the year, so.
I would move approval of the $15,900 Carico Aquatic Resource Chemical purchase.
Second.
Stephanie. Moved and seconded to move forward with the Aquatic Resource Water Management Assistance Program. And if we're ready to vote on that one, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is discussion consideration of the TIP reimbursement certification for Stonebrook Phase 1.
I'm just gonna talk about all these. This is the annual certification of reimbursements to both developments, both Stonebrook and Spring Meadow Heights. The only thing that I want to point out, which I think is just kind of an incredible testament to how this works how well this works when everything goes correctly, but Spring Meadow Heights Phase 1 is in year 4 of its reimbursement. So that phase will be left out, and all of that tax will come back to the city, county, and school. So, yeah, year 4.
Which is how we hope it works.
Correct.
Each time we do this.
Yes.
So another 10.
Yes.
I've seen developments like this who have taken the full 10 years and not necessarily gotten to the number that they're supposed to hit. In both subdivisions, I think the average will probably be 7.
We need to take each one of these separately.
You
The
do,
same
because
concept as of explanation we got from Chris here. But the first one for Stonebrook Phase 1, is there a motion?
So moved.
That's Scott.
Second.
Okay. Move the second to move forward with the Stonebrook Phase 1 reimbursement certification. And if we're ready to vote on that one, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Same idea on Stonebrook Phase 2A. That's Mark and Paul. Ready to vote on that one? Stonebrook Phase 2A. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Same principle here on Stonebrook Phase 2B.
Move to approve Stonebrook Phase 2B.
Second.
Craig and Stephanie. Move the second to move forward with Stonebrook Phase 2B. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Discussion and consideration of tax increment financing certification for Stonebrook Phase 3.
So
I'll give it to
Second.
Paul and Stephanie. The Stonebrook Phase 3 project, if we're ready to vote on that, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Stonebrook Phase 4.
So moved.
Scott?
Second.
Paul? Motion on the floor to approve Stonebrook Phase 4. We're ready to vote on it. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and consideration of the tax increment financing reimbursement certification for Springbrook Meadow Heights, Phase 1. Same principle.
Second.
Different division. Okay,
Right.
good. Did you get that? Okay, you got it, okay. Because I didn't. Motion on the floor for Spring Meadow Heights, Phase 1. We're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Now we're at Spring Meadow Heights, Phase 2.
So moved.
Certification, Stephanie
Second.
and Scott. When you vote on Spring Meadow Heights Phase 2, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And Chris, which one did you say was done after?
One.
The Spring Meadow?
It's from the Heights, Phase 1.
Discussion consideration change order number 1 on the 2024 water meter replacement project.
So this was a net increase of $5,698, which on $1 million project is pretty decent.
I would move approval of change order number 1 for the water meter replacement project.
Thank you, Paul.
Second?
Stephanie? Moving seconded to move forward and approve change order number 1 on the water meter replacement project. No questions of staff. Ready to vote on that one? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and consideration of pay application number 1 on 2024 water meter replacement project.
The application's in the amount of $201,606.09.
Is there a motion to approve that pay application number 1 by Paul?
Second.
And Scott. Ready to vote on that one. This is the application number 1 on the water meter replacement project. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and consideration of the application number 2 on the same water meter replacement project.
$33,932.06, so moved.
Second?
Moving second to move forward with pay application number 2. We're ready to vote for that one. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed? That passes as well. Finally, number 18, discussion and consideration of Surface Pro replacements for the LBC. Council action is needed.
These Surface Pros, $10,047.90. We've gone to laptops for the most part for staff, with the exception of the LBC, just because they need the interaction of the Surface Pro at the front desk. So, the only location that I still have these in place, but
So they're a little over 5.5 years old.
One of which is really acting up.
they get a lot of use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's pretty good because, you know, we typically replace them every 3 years, all of the hardware, so.
Uh,
That's what you deal with, yeah.
Iowa Solutions recommended 5 years is max.
What do you do with these old ones? Are they just, they're
They
done?
wipe them and recycle them.
They don't do anything for them?
Now, by the time you spend the money to wipe them clean,
Okay.
we can give them back to Iowa Solutions and they wipe it and get rid of it for us, basically at no charge.
All right, I will
But
move
they do
to,
get recycled,
Yes.
is the thing.
yes, I will move to approve the replacement of the 4 Surface Pros at the cost of $10,014.90.
Second?
Stephanie Mark. Moved and seconded to move forward the replacement of the Phillips Road at LBC. Any more questions from staff? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item for discussion is LBC child care discussion. This has been, the process has been going on for about 2.5 years. First brought to our attention by the meeting with voters. And it's gone through some leadership changes, and now the current chief, point of the spears, our own Craig Engel here is leading that up. And thank you for taking on that project. I invited people that have been involved with the project from its inception to this meeting, and James here, Carlson, representing the League of Women Voters, is here. But I think at the last school board meeting is when I had that discussion with them, because it's evolved to that point that when they start lining up partners here more seriously, and it was very well received. They knew there was a community need. The 110, 120, how many kids that are on a daycare list that are not getting daycare in our community. Of course, I had a good discussion with a party on looking at fundraising, looking for that lead donor is the key point here. But there's been some wins through the 2.5 years with the opening of the LCC West and with the wage enhancement program that is going on. Am I missing any of the major wins? But it's kind of evolved to the point where something it's facilitated. There needs to be space for it. And every church has been surveyed and toured and so on. And I've toured through buildings that are open for sale, and it's, it comes back to this being a result of a decision about a year ago when we decided that the pool was going to stay in the northwest quadrant of town and not be attached to the LBC as an indoor facility. And I think that was the wise thing to do, and I think that was community input. Do what it frees up the area by the LBC. Toughest discussion was probably what Chris had with Sarah and Matt to see, are you interested in not necessarily running it, but being involved with it, because it'll be a big change for their area, their space, and so on. But hopefully with some wins in the end, with a gain of 1,000 feet in the top floor. So I'm bouncing around all over in the discussion here. Jane, do you want to add anything?
Well, just that the needs, even with the opening of the West for the Lisbon Early Childhood Center, she still has a waiting list of over 75 children, including, she always brings up one unconceived child, that somebody wants to have a child and has put that child on the waiting list even though the child isn't even in utero yet. So, which I always get a kick out of. And so anyway, if there's still a well-documented need, and I think people aren't moving to Mount Vernon or Lisbon sometimes because they will not have childcare.
So we actually have two that saw the article in the paper and contacted Matt about being put on the waiting list.
There are people that want to be on the wait list for our facility that is not built
That
yet.
we haven't even put a show.
We haven't even got approval from council.
So,
That's new information and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And both of those children have been born. So,
Yeah.
ahead of the game, if you will.
They're even, yeah.
Jane, I want to thank you for your persistence and your dedication
Thank you.
and also the lead, so please pass that along.
You're welcome. And I'm going to just say Linda Bigley, Carol Daly, and Carol Raboon Wozniak, and maybe Colette a little bit. They really are a major part of this committee.
If I can, so we've had initial meetings and I'm going to throw some numbers out at you, but I need everybody to understand that this is a 1,000-foot view of this facility right now. So the thought is approximately 19,000 square feet with an entire first floor that could be isolated and created specifically for daycare, childcare needs. There would be 8 classrooms, office, a small breakout room, things of that nature. So that entire first floor would be dedicated to childcare. It could be locked separately from the rest of the addition. And the goal has been to have the square footage available so that somebody could potentially come in and run it, and we would negotiate with that individual moving forward. The second part to that is obviously in addition to the LBC, would be a second story. Grand total, just under 20,000 square feet would be constructed. The addition includes 3 large rooms and storage. One is what I would designate a party room. The other is an interactive indoor play area. So basically imagine playground set and set indoors. And then a very wide open turf room space that would be considered multi-purpose. When the LBC was originally put under construction, the project was estimated to be just over $8 million. Bids came in about, I'll say $800,000 or $900,000 under that. So the construction bid initial was $7.2 million. I was constructed at about $250 a square foot. Current prices are over $400. So while this is actually smaller than the first phase of the LBC, we were probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 million to construct 19,000 square feet. My initial conversations with the mayor, and that's kind of why we've opened the door to fundraising, is the city's initial investment in the LBC was about $5 million, and I would expect to be half of that 11 to be the city's contribution. So that means another $5.5 million would have to be fundraised some way, either through grants or donations. So that's kind of where we're sitting. What's that?
Good thing we have grant.
Yeah. So that, that's kind of where the project sits. In some ways, it's an incredible possibility. It's probably the most feasible possibility that I've heard in the 2.5, maybe 3 years that we've been working on this. It would serve anywhere from 80 to 110 kids. Most likely from the architect, 90 to 100, all ages. So that's like I said, an exciting endeavor. Before we go any further, knowing that we're talking those kind of dollars, just wanted to make sure that the council was still fully aware that if we move forward with a project like this, it has a net effect on other projects throughout the city. So taking up $5.5 million of our borrowing capacity when our total is $20 million, for instance, means that you're carving a fifth of that away for one individual project. Now, we've been fairly aggressive. We buy down our debt by about $1.2 to $1.5 million every year, so I'm not necessarily worried about that initial investment, but we do need to be aware of that. So I have 3 projects that are kind of at the top of my list that I would consider big ticket items. The least being Highway 1. We'll have stormwater work that needs to be completed. DOT is taking a lion's share of that initial reconstruction, but initial estimates are somewhere around $1 million that the city would be responsible for, considering it's a 3-mile stretch, I think, through town, 3 or 4 mile stretch through town. It's actually not so bad. You'll hear about this at the next meeting. Will be uptown. So Lori and Jay will present the Uptown Streetscape project at the next meeting. Initial numbers are better than what I thought. I actually Want to bet?
There you go.
I still think at the end of it, I'm gonna be closer.
The expectation is each phase is probably gonna be closer to 2.5 million. Know this, that project, there's a distinct timeline, right? So Highway 1 is scheduled for 2027, so that's on a DOT schedule, so we'll have to adapt to that. Cannot have Highway 1 and the Uptown Streetscape under construction at the same time. So the expectation would be Highway 1 in 2027, Uptown Streetscape wouldn't be eligible then for funding probably until fiscal year '29. So we have time. But, like I said, is the child care one of those 3 top priorities for you? Because those will dictate how I look at a capital improvements plan for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
In my mind, absolutely. It's important. I do have a question. You didn't mention it specifically about the plans, and this came up with the LVC. Is there a kitchen planned? Because what's in the LVC now is very limited. And, you know, I just remember back from my kids going to daycare, them having healthy meals was important.
Yeah, so we'll still have to contract, and we've had discussions, and please don't say that I'm putting the school on the spot, because I'm not, but we've had discussions with the school or Cornell,
Okay.
who are aware of the standards that are required. Each of these classrooms is kind of its own safe space in itself. So they have their own restroom, they have their own little kitchenette, they have their own sinks. The teachers, individuals, childcare workers wouldn't even technically have to leave the room. It's safe, they can travel to the LBC on the 2nd floor without leaving their space. So I do think, like I said, location to the school, there's a lot of positives that could potentially come out of this. But
Just needed to ask.
yeah, absolutely. Parking is one I don't have an answer to. So that $11 million does not include parking. Now, I would tell you that the parking in and around the LBC is not just a city problem, that is a school problem as well. So we'll have some time to have conversations about it, but it's still going to be problematic. Now, I would tell you that the way that the addition to the LBC is set up, childcare would use the west parking lot and not necessarily have to utilize 10th, which is nice.
There
But
will be about 15 employees that are going to be taking up.
now I would say with the additions to the parking lot at the school, though, some of the stalls that were initially set aside for the school, that discussion could be had.
They do not need those anymore because of the addition to the activity center, so they've solved their parking issues. If they grow, then obviously they will probably have a need, but right now the growth is not there. You need that space.
Cornell is at the table in the sense that they've had the discussion about is there any space up there? There was for a little while, but now there's not. But assistance with college work study, possible part-time, short-term employment is on the table there. The school district would build their own if they had bonding capacity. They don't, and they won't for 4 or 5 years, and that's a reality there. So I'm trying to step up and fill that void. School, for this legislative session that is over with, we have to deal with all-day four-year-old care, and they don't have classrooms for that. So they may need these rooms for school-run four-year-old programs, I mean, possibly. We're thinking that this is an attractive project that the governor might throw some money at. We'll see. But we're going to hunt money hard here, that's for sure.
Have there been conversations with providers? I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a field of dreams kind of deal where we're going to build it and hope that somebody
I wouldn't necessarily say Field of Dreams per se. We've leaned a little bit on Matt Lehman and his contacts with providers. I think the interest is there. Keep in mind that the square footage that the city is building, in order to negotiate, make sure that this thing stays affordable for all end users, and then the incorporation of individuals low to moderate income, the negotiation tool for the city is not necessarily to garner a lot of rent from this. As a matter of fact, if they pay the utilities, that would be more than sufficient for me. Now, keep in mind that, as I stated in an earlier meeting today, solving the childcare problem is one aspect of this. The addition of those spaces up above also provides additional rental perspective for the LBC, and I think anywhere from 100 to 150 new memberships, just having that additional space. So,
Only if you consider the comment that Jane made earlier regarding people choosing to live in this area. It is an economic tool to enhance our offerings. And oftentimes we lose sight of that when we take on some of these projects. And, quality of life is important to people. That's why we are extending the life of the pool once again, because we can't have the pie in the sky that we all want today, but we're figuring out ways to enhance it and make it work. But, for me, I look back on years my children were young, and we were blessed that there were child care providers in the area, and we actually had choices. I won't tell you how long ago that was, but things have changed, and I think that this is an area where, for the good of the community and from a variety of perspectives, this is a project that makes sense, both from meeting a need, enhancing the LBC. By nature, as you grow the population of the community, you're going to increase memberships, and to do that, what better way than to provide additional opportunities? I think we would be short-sighted not to work on this, especially in light of one of the few things that I agree with our governor on, that there is the child care desert areas in our state, that that's an area that we do seem to have some opportunity to work with the state government on. And one way I can guarantee we won't fill this need is if we sit still and do nothing. It's like I tell kids when I coach in baseball. One way I can guarantee you'll never get a hit, is not swing the bat. I think we swing the bat.
And the governor is also, and her colleagues have been saying that we want to have 4-year-old preschool at the school so that parents don't have to drive to pick up their kids, take them to school, then take them to preschool somewhere else. The LBC is perfectly located to have childcare so that when parents are dropping off their first, second, third, fourth graders, they can also drop off their 2, 3, 4-year-olds.
It'd be nice to see some funding to go with that mandate.
Well, no, I would echo, I think there's a couple of
really good reasons to move forward with this, not the least of which is the economic driving potential. I think back several years ago, Stephanie and I attended one of the first meetings that the league hosted on this, and there was a survey that resulted from that, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but there were a significant number of respondents that indicated that they had figured out where they wanted to live based on, or at least childcare came into that equation. So, and it's just frankly the right thing to do. It's something that young families in our community need. So,
And we've got a lot of houses getting built, and a lot of lots that want houses in them.
So there will be more kids?
Exactly.
March 1st is now the deadline by the state for open enrollment. And every time you see Matt Lehman in the month of February or this time of year, he said, and then the conversations of people that wanted to open enroll their kids here, but couldn't find the right house, couldn't find the right price range or whatever. So discussions are continuing on a parallel line on trying to establish a more entry-level housing price. Nothing against the pricing that the housing is in Stonebrook, but it's a niche there that may not be entry-level families. I mean, this is something for two-car garages and maybe unfinished basements. So if we get people in the community, get their kids in the community, and they can build up from there. That's a gap in our housing inventory, if you will. We've got tons of housing inventory that's been very successfully sold at two ends of town, but it's entry-level housing.
But we need that too.
Swing the bat, that's our new headline for, gotta swing the bat.
No. If 100% of the putts that don't get to the hole don't go in. 100%.
you don't shoot the ball, you're never going to make the basket.
Yeah.
If you don't serve.
We do this all day.
If you don't serve.
And then would there be like solar panels? Would the solar panels that we have existing help? Would that be enough?
Would they help to offset?
No.
No.
We need to put some more on the roof.
My guess is there would be an addition on the roof, and then where we've had issues on the east side of the building, we've been looking at like a solar kind of canopy there as well. I think if you took all of that together, you'd probably get pretty close to having that entire footprint covered. But yeah, I think that's obviously the goal. We can't expand the geothermal field any bigger than what it actually is today. But yeah, when you talk about affecting an entire generation, if this addition were to be constructed, you theoretically could have kids that would start at the LBC and go all the way through all 4 buildings in the process. So I think that's a huge selling point for the community itself, and my expectation is we can get kids from all over, probably from Mechanicsville to Springville. We had a meeting with the county supervisor, and she's sitting there trying to figure out in her head how she could make that work, swim down to Mount Vernon on her way into Cedar Rapids. So, yeah, the need is obviously there. I'd be lying if I didn't say the project scares me just a little bit. It's a relatively new venture for a city to undertake, but the
The
square footage.
OBC scared us too, though.
Yeah. I think that the feasibility is there. We're not trying to compete on a square foot basis. We're just trying to get space so somebody can come in and operate.
So on that point, let's assume it's built. 5-10 years from now, for whatever reason, it isn't feasible any longer. The partner pulls out, somebody else comes in, we no longer have the population to support it.
School builds the 4th building.
School builds a 4th building, and now that, and I know, and I'm asking this question when I already know the answer, because Matt and I have spoken out at the recycling thing, but what do we do then with this space that we now have?
So the expectation is we would probably reach out to Kirkwood or one of the universities. I think the city of Waterloo, or the Waterloo School District is building kind of a first in the state when it comes to introducing trades in the school district. So there's a lot of possibilities to use the square footage. It's essentially 8 classrooms, just under 1,000 square feet. So 2 of the classrooms were just under 700, and the rest were just under 1,000. Means some minor retrofitting would probably be needed, but beyond
Toilet
that,
couldn't be 8 inches up.
beyond that, I think, you know, I think
We've all gone to parent-teacher conferences and know.
Bigger toilets, for sure.
the possibility for reuse is definitely there. So that was one of the things that we talked about, and you know, that's what makes the prospect of being able to isolate the first floor even more enticing. Is if somebody has to come to Mount Vernon and wants to build a giant childcare and I don't have to worry about it anymore, great. We'd be able to isolate that first floor and offer some other program. So, like I said, it's hard to really poke outside of the price. It's really hard to poke too many holes in the theory of this addition. But with that being said, we still need a significant amount of money fundraised to make it happen.
That would dictate.
Yep.
I guess so. We leave the money or we won't.
Well, there have been multiple points along this process where I thought I was dead in the water, and I love that I have been wrong every single time. So thanks to Craig and Jane and the league and Chris and Matt and the schools and everybody who's
And Tom.
and Tom, who's been pulling on this rope for a long time. But that's how these big things happen. So,
This is just a discussion item for tonight, but
Chris and Tom are getting, you're gonna get the governor here next week.
I'll be gone the next.
I'm going wherever Craig's going.
The expectation is once we kind of get to that point is to vote this idea. There's been a number of conversations, I think, from representatives that this shouldn't necessarily be a government problem, and I don't want to call that opinion short-sighted by any means, but you have an industry that is retracting, and it's retracting for various reasons, and some sort of subsidy is going to be required in order to make these work. And even though I don't like it, between fitness centers and golf courses and pools, anything that happens to lose money or need a subsidy is what ends up falling on our lap. So while as a community we can sit there and recognize that opinion and say, everybody's saying it shouldn't be our problem, or we can step forward and tackle the problem like we have, at least for the last 9 years that I've been here.
Well, I agree it shouldn't be our problem, but the flip side is we all get to choose the type of community that we want to live in. And there are plenty of communities that would say, no, this isn't our thing, and would not have continued pushing this rock up the hill. And that isn't how we have historically operated here. And I think it's why a lot of folks, myself included, come back, and a lot of folks come here to begin with. So I think it's more than just not our problem. I think it's the type of place that we choose to live in.
issue to be bold on.
Agreed.
Not to be bold. Any other discussion? It's probably incumbent on Chris and I to figure out next steps and the timing for next steps, I guess. But we have an in-person meeting with Matt Lehman on Tuesday of next week, I think. So we'll get a discussion then. Anything else on childcare discussion right now? Did we get a final score of the game?
70,
5-19.
75 to 19?
Yikes.
Yeah.
That was an interesting segment.
Well,
Who won?
yeah.
Take
I
a
kept
guess.
keeping up
No
with
subs
that,
got in.
The one thing I would like to say about is thank you for bringing it forward at this time with the information you have. I think that we have a consensus of support.
And in the community. I mean, I'm not,
yeah.
this is on jabs. We're gonna waiting list fuel or whatever, I mean, it's like no one's.
Well, we need to make this feel like, yeah, it needs to be acknowledged that it is a community.
That's what matters.
Yes.
Yep.
Any of that topic of the child care discussion? Reports, mayor's report. I basically say three things. On my agenda, hiring a police chief. That process is beginning in earnest Wednesday of this week. Daycare, whether it's the operational or the fundraising board, is the second thing that's heavy on my agenda. And the third is housing, entry-level housing, young family housing, if you will, variety of styles, not just single-family homes, but getting a developer that'll find space and the right pricing for homes for entry level. That's what's on my agenda. Any council reports?
Just a reminder that I will be on at our next meeting.
Yep. Thanks for the reminder, Paul. Council committee reports. City administrators report. Anything to add to what you sent out already, other than budget related?
So, I'm just going to forewarn everyone on the budget. The budget that you're going to see requires us to dip into reserves, which I despise doing, but there really isn't a way to balance without doing such. And then I will tell you that the bond issuance that was sold in 2009 for sewer and water project is absolutely killing me. And while we increased rates on sewer 8% last year and had talked about doing 8% this year, I'm not sure 8% is going to be enough. And while we have an automatic raise in water rates as well, I'm not sure that automatic raise is going to be enough. Been trying to keep those increases as low as humanly possible, but we have to make bond payments. There's nothing I can go do. I mean, these bonds were 20-year bonds and they were sold well before I got here. So, unfortunately, like I said, when I come to you this year, the expectation is July 1 that the rates are definitely going to go up. They'll probably go up more than I had hoped.
And not to go too far down the budgetary road, but just for those folks that are looking at it going, well, you guys just talked about spending $11 million to build this thing, and now you're telling me we need to raise rates. There are very specific pots of money when you talk city finances. We can't just say, we're going to take this money over here and spend it over there. That's not. So for those just wondering what on earth we're thinking.
There's about 30 pots.
Yeah, and very
And they all have
specific
different
rules
rules.
about each of them, so, which is why we are very thankful that you do what you do, because good.
Well, and I'm going to put this plug in here for those individuals that talk to their legislatures. You know, they put handicap, I mean, they'll put handicap us with the biggest pots that we need. So you've got to find creative ways in order to make up those funds, or you start cutting services. That's the other option. And I will tell you that we are making some cuts this year. So it's not as if we are just continuously raising. From a staff perspective, with the exception of adding the LBC and the fact that we joined forces with Lisbon on the police department, we haven't added full-time staff. We've cut seasonal employees. We have 2.5 mowers litter mowing the entire community on a weekly basis, and there's another 10+ acres that are coming online over the course of the next, 5 years. So we have done an extremely good job, I think, in the past. I just can't keep up with the cuts that they're making in Des Moines. And I would argue with any of them that, and tell you that the Greater Des Moines Partnership put together a study about this. And if I asked anybody as I walked up and down the street if they want to pay more in taxes, I will absolutely get no. If I walk up and down the street and said, do you want to raise taxes or not? But if you don't, this is what has to happen in order to make that happen, then everybody's tune starts to change because nobody agrees on where those service cuts need to be made. But when I tell people that there are 3 statutorily required departments, police, fire, and library. That's it.
So we don't have to plow.
No. There's nothing in state statutes that says we have to plow. As a matter of fact, quite a few cities don't. A lot of the larger cities will plow major arterials, collectors, and then they'll leave the residential streets alone. They don't grind. They don't put a ton of salt down. And I don't blame them. There's no way that their budgets could ever hold up to that. But the things that people want, parks, for instance, comes out of the same pot of money that the police department does, the fire department. So there's got to be an understanding that I don't know that anybody enjoys raising anything, and I pay the same amount that everybody else in the community is paying when I make these recommendations. So it's not as if I'm not hitting the same pocketbook. With all of that being said, though, we have roads, and if you want them to be fixed, they cost X amount of dollars. Sewer, water, I mean, all of those things. We've secured a lot of money over the course of the last 10 years, and we've done a lot of projects, but it doesn't even look like in some instances that we've scratched the surface. And so,
If you walked up and down the street and said to people that you might have to pay an extra $10 for sewage so that you can be able to flush your toilets, they'll say, yeah, I want to do that.
yeah.
Because most people are going to have a $50 sewer bill, and if it goes up 15%, which is non-incremental raise, I understand that, but you're talking $7.50.
No, and the challenge is going to be, so this 2009 bond goes out until 2020. So it's a 20-year bond. It represents that one bond payment, and I'm still going back to figure out what it is they all did with this borrowing, but that one bond payment represents both bond payments that we'll have to fix up the plant to match the state mandated requirements of our new permit. So the state's like, you can't raise rates or can't do this, but we're going to go ahead and permit your sewer plant, and you have to put $6 million into it over the course of the next 3 or 4 years. I don't know about you, but the math doesn't make sense. Maybe that's why I stay in Mount Vernon and don't go to Des Moines, except for tomorrow.
Safe travels.
Despite item 1 on your report.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
So, we haven't been able to honor some of the increases that people have asked for. We haven't been able to keep staffing levels 100% the way that they are. Thankfully, we have had some bad luck, so it's going to actually save some dollars over the course of the next year, but that also puts a burden on everybody else that's got to fill the gap. So I always love ending on such a positive note.
Well, you didn't ask.
But
if-
since you told me that I have to move forward with the childcare, then I get to end with this.
You didn't ask Eldon and Matt and Doug and whether or not they had anything to report.
Look at them all.
Everything's so quiet this time of year. No, like I said, it is still positive. It's, while it's difficult, we're still better off than a number of communities. It's just gonna challenge us.
Thank you for your report and your. Anything else that we need to discuss at this time? Anything else before this- Otherwise, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
You can say that.
Brad.